Now it's 4. Okay, this is offensive. This is just offensively bad. I'm Tyler Foles, the nuclear engineer. Let's tear apart some more videos.
The 13,000 nukes that currently exist, every city on the planet could be destroyed.
Now 13,000 nukes is a lot, though only about 4,000 of them are active. And as far as destroying every city, well, the definition of city is a little vague, and I'm not really going to get into that, but as far as destroying every urban area in the world, it's simply not enough firepower, even going by the average of them being 400 kilotons. However, it would do a lot of damage, so we don't want to stress test this.
The explosions would carry so much ash into the atmosphere it'd cause a global winter, where temperatures could stay below freezing year-round.
Dude, no. Okay, so nuclear winter has been highly exaggerated. I go into more detail about this in other videos, but one quick way to compare it to is looking at volcanic eruptions. The Tambora volcanic eruption in 1815 was 30,000 megatons, which is far more than the 13,000 nukes in the world, even if we round them up to 1 megaton apiece, and they're not. On average, they're about 400 kilotons. There are some that are bigger than a megaton, but the vast majority of them are less than a megaton today. And that did not cause temperatures freezing year-round. It did lower temperatures and have adverse effects on crops. And it did cause a temporary cooling effect in 1816. There was known as the year without a summer. But nuclear weapons just simply aren't powerful enough, or there's simply not enough of them to cause that sort of effect. And it's also... Tambora was in one spot, so it was a lot more concentrated. So this is more spread out and more likely to be diffused, diluted. It would be a more smooth, even impact. So that's enough even impact rather than a more concentrated effect like the Tambora eruption. It wouldn't be as severe in terms of cooling effects. Obviously, it would be far more severe in terms of actual destruction because we're talking about nuclear weapons going off and destroying multiple cities, which did not happen in the Tambora eruption.
Estimates show that some of humanity might survive the immediate impacts, but it would definitely be the...
Those are clips from I don't know, like Clash of the Titans or something. No. Yeah, humans would survive it. It would be a severe effect, to say the very least. We do not want to stress like this. Horrific amount of deaths and destruction, far more than any armed conflict seen in history, but I don't know why he's showing pictures of that movie.
End of human civilization as we know it.
Okay, end of as we know it. I mean, sure, that's a very vague statement, and yeah, it would certainly change things. Like, it would kill international trade. Of course, it would take a lot less than that to cause that much of a disruption. I mean, look at what COVID did. You can argue that COVID changed human civilization as we know it, but albeit not as much as this, but... All right, I don't have a problem with that statement, though.
That's why I want to shed light on hashtag Trains for Our Future, which is a movement that advocates for a peaceful future where nuclear weapons don't exist, where problems between nations are solved based on mutual respect and not by fighting and destroying each other.
Okay, two very different things. One, nuclear weapons not existing. So I'm a nuclear engineer that supports the peaceful use of nuclear technology, safe, clean, reliable energy source. Not a fan of nuclear weapons. But nuclear weapons ceasing to exist and people treating each other with respect, not fighting each other, those are two very different things. Getting rid of nuclear weapons would be far easier than, say, just having people magically respect and not fight each other. There's whole aspects of psychology, biology, evolutionary concepts, social concepts dating back to being within your tribe versus being the other, the outcast. Whole mess of biological and psychological things that I'm not an expert in that would involve sorting out that problem. So good luck. I'd obviously like to see that. We shouldn't fight each other or destroy each other.
This August, for the first time in 7 years, governments are meeting at the United Nations to discuss nuclear disarmament. And we can show them the world is demanding action.
Okay, all these clips are just from like movies and various things. This is kind of more of like a visual tool to illustrate his point, so I guess we shouldn't take it too literally, but it is kind of silly.
Just fold a paper crane and share it on your social media accounts with hashtag Cranes for Our Future.
I really like that he has good intentions for advocate for peace and limiting nuclear weapons, eliminating nuclear weapons, but it's not, you shouldn't exaggerate the effects of nuclear winter. But that's a pretty common one out there. That's been within the human zeitgeist since the 1980s. So I can certainly understand where he's getting his information from. It's just happens to be out of date. It's like this next one's on Chernobyl.
Each person can only stay on the roof for 45 seconds.
So a dose of 10,000 Rontgen, presumably per hour. Dose rates are always expressed in per hour, though technically Rontgen is a unit of exposure rather than dose. And by exposure, we're literally counting the ionizations from radiation. So 10,000 Rontgen, that's pretty high though when you convert it to dose. So assuming 100% gamma radiation, which is actually your best case scenario, that would be 100 sieverts per hour. And graphite on roofs, it ranged anywhere between 2,000 and 15,000. So this number is actually within band. So 100 sieverts, 10 sieverts is lethal. So 100 sieverts per hour, you can't stay for long. If this happened in the US, it would need to be marked with this symbol. Notice the stop sign shape. That means do not go there. I've never been in a situation where I've had to go into a very high grave danger radiation area.
Each person can only stay on the roof for 45 seconds.
So 45 seconds, so that would figure out to 1.25 sieverts for a 45-second job, which is enough to cause mild radiation sickness, nausea, low blood cell count, possibly vomiting. It's recoverable, and you'll live, and you should get a full recovery. That far exceeds the dose limit in the US. For a radiation worker, and that is 10 times the threshold for an increased cancer risk over time. Not to say doing this job is going to give you cancer, but it will put you at an increased risk of cancer. It's all a probability function. And in the US, the dose limit for radiation workers is half that. So you would get your radiation dose limit in a couple of seconds.
Each person can only stay on the roof for 45 seconds, and at most can shovel twice. The radiation level here can be lethal within an hour.
It can be lethal within 6 minutes at 10,000 Rontgen. Now, some sections of the roof were significantly less than that at 2,000 Rontgen. This sort of job, if you're going to do anything remotely close to that, you're going to need some type of crazy briefing, continuous monitoring. You would have dosimetry on each of your body parts, because it's possible you might get a targeted dose that's way higher on your left arm versus, say, your right leg. This whole thing was crazy. But yeah, you would cycle through people. You would cycle through a lot of people like this.
What you are seeing is the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in 1986. People sacrificed their lives to save at least half of the world's population.
Half of the world's population? What? All right, let's back up. So yes, people died during the response. 30 people died immediately. And the death toll went up to in the 50 to 60 range if you include later onset acute radiation poisoning and cancers that have emerged since the accident. So not going to dismiss the people that paid the ultimate sacrifice to help clean this up. But half the world's population? That's almost going back to the previous video where the extreme nuclear winter, even under its worst case scenarios, wouldn't take out half the world's population. So Chernobyl, no. If this rubble would have sat here, it's not killing millions of people. It's not even killing anyone unless they completely abandon the area and people just walk into the building without any sort of monitoring whatsoever. They left it, and they didn't even make a Chernobyl exclusion zone. But not to dismiss what these people did, but this would not have killed millions of people. I don't see how they got there.
Of just over 100 rubles. The roof of reactor number 4, where the explosion occurred, was covered with nuclear contamination. The Soviet authorities planned to use robots for cleaning, but the radiation here caused the robots to malfunction. To ensure the safety of Europe and even the world, the Soviet authorities launched the biomechanical robot plan.
All right, so basically, they could have used certain robots, could have functioned under that heavy radiation field, but they weren't Soviet robots. They were on the other side of the Iron Curtain. They would have been from West Germany, and they did not want to collaborate with them for that particular technology, which would have worked better. So it looks like a lot of these clips he got are from the Chernobyl drama series on HBO, which wasn't accurate. I don't think it was supposed to be accurate, but a lot of people are taking it like it is, and it's just not. Because I remember they even used the term biomechanical robot in that series.
Sending living people to clean up the contamination. 3,500 reserve soldiers were sent to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, all aged between 20 and 30, about to engage in a final battle against nuclear radiation.
Final. Okay, that's pretty dramatic. 3,500 reserve soldiers. I don't know how many were reserve soldiers, but the total cleanup without the entire exclusion zone was hundreds of thousands of people, actually. Now, there might have just been 35 to that one site, that one roof, because you're going to cycle through a lot of people very quickly for that 45-second job.
These soldiers wore lead suits weighing up to 20 kilograms.
I like that it showed LED suits. Or maybe they like Led Zeppelin. So wearing lead, I mean, it'll protect you. It's better than nothing. Lead is good at attenuating gamma radiation, and 8 inches of lead, which is a lot, super heavy. They're not wearing 8 inches of lead because that would weigh a lot more than 20 kilograms. Will stop most gamma radiation from fission products. But even their PPE would protect them from alpha and beta sources, like just the gloves, the masks. The main hazard from inhalation is associated with a certain particular matter. And just by wearing covered clothes, I mean, it helps, but it's one of those trade-offs that it also makes you less maneuverable. I mean, being able to time that 45 seconds, what if you trip and fall? You fall and you get a face full of radioactive material. This is a panic crazy job.
Divided into multiple teams, taking turns to go to the roof, quickly shoveling the contaminants downstairs, then leaving promptly and being replaced by another team. Each person carefully calculated the time, trying to avoid risking their lives, but in reality, many soldiers experienced discomfort. They gritted their teeth and persisted until the last shovel of soil was cleaned up.
I mean, 45 seconds is enough to get some mild radiation poisoning, and by mild is still pretty severe as far as discomfort and nausea and vomiting goes. Severe would be death. So when I say mild is still pretty bad.
It was later discovered that the radiation level on the roof reached an astonishing 10,000 rems.
Okay, 10,000 rems. So that's also another unit of dose equivalent. 100 sieverts is 10,000 rems. And the majority of the dose you would get or you would measure at that range would be gamma, so it is a fair one-to-one comparison in this particular case.
Equivalent to 100,000 times the normal situation.
That's far more than 100,000 times the normal as far as background radiation is concerned. That number they're referring to is the dose limit of 1 millisievert to a member of the general public. The dose limit for a radiation worker is much higher at 50 millisieverts, but I know very few people that have gotten even close to that, and that 50 millisieverts is over the course of a year.
It should not have been sent for cleaning, but the Soviet Union had no choice at the time. Otherwise, nuclear contamination would inevitably spread.
They did have a choice. They could ask non-Soviet aligned countries for help with better robots. This is on a nuclear-powered airplane. Let's see.
The man who invented the nuclear-powered aircraft was a real monster.
Okay, are those a bunch of F-4s like docked in an airborne aircraft carrier? What is this? The only ones I were aware of were this NB-36H, which carried a nuclear reactor, but it was never actually connected to the engines. It never went past the testing phase. And this modified Soviet Tu-95 with a nuclear reactor, but in that case, they were really just testing the effectiveness of airborne radiation shielding because the reactor was just fitted in the bomb bay. There were some other designs that were introduced but never really made it off the drawing board. So I don't know what the hell this is.
The man who invented the nuclear-powered aircraft was a real monster, with a wingspan of more than 300 meters and a weight of more than 5,000 tons.
Those are different aircraft.
Making ordinary aircraft look like toys in front of him.
It kind of does look like a toy. I mean, it's showing F-4s docked in there. Okay, how would you even get in there from this plane? You're going to do like a wing walk out to there while it's airborne for mid-air refueling? Or is this just the Arsenal bird from Ace Combat 7?
each of which could be put into action at any time, and which belong to the aircraft carriers in the true sense
If
of the
you're
word.
going to do that, do it with
It
drones.
can also carry 10 nuclear warheads, and there is absolutely no doubt about its terrifying striking capability. The nuclear-powered air
If you're going to make it up, go ahead and give it everything. Give it nuclear weapons, have it an airborne aircraft carrier. Can it also go into space?
power source and could fly uninterruptedly in the air for more than 40 days. The reason why it wasn't a permanent flight was because there was only enough food on the plane for more than 40 days.
The reason why it's not a permanent flight is because it's a complete and utter work of fiction.
On the plane for more than 40 days. The plane is so big that if it were converted into an airliner, it would hold 30 seats in a row.
This is complete made-up hogwash.
120 rows on one floor and 5 floors in total, which means that the plane could hold 18,000 passengers. If he was so great, but why wasn't it eventually produced? In fact, this airplane is a joke. With such a big airplane and no stealth function, once it is hit by a missile, the loss will be extremely heavy. And if
Yeah, I mean, and good luck keeping that thing up. This is the Arsenal bird or any other big airborne aircraft from those Ace Combat games is what this is.
you have to build oversized runways for him to do it.
They're also showing
And worse
different
still,
planes.
The crew has to face the threat of nuclear radiation all the time.
That's probably the least concern. I mean, one thing about the crew is you'd have to train effectively pilots and reactor operators on this thing at once, which is a lot of certifications they would need to get, but that's probably the least of their concerns. What runway is big enough? Or does it take off like a Zeppelin or something? Or is it a giant VTOL nuclear jet? Yeah. Worrying about radiation is the least of your concerns when you're designing this monstrosity.
This is also the reason why there are nuclear aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines, but no nuclear airplanes.
Here's a classic.
6, 5, 4, 3.
So it's a lead-lined fridge. And again, lead is good at shielding you from gamma radiation. Not sure how much lead is in there, but 8 inches would shield you from most gammas, though gamma radiation is not the biggest hazard associated with a nuclear explosion at this range.
2, 1, 0.
Alright, so let's talk about all the ways Indiana Jones would have died. So it looks like he was outside of the fireball range, so he would have been spared from that. Everything around him would have been burned. I don't know if the fridge could really protect you that much from burns, though I know the fridge is cold, so that's probably movie logic thinking that, hey, it's like anti-burn, right? The shockwave would have crushed him and the fridge. But even if he miraculously survived like they showed in the movie, he would have just the fridge landing like that and bouncing around, that would have crushed him, just the fall. And he still would have received significant radiation damage. Highly likely the fridge would be contaminated with all that radioactive debris that would have gotten. And he's still breathing. No, he wouldn't be. But maybe this was one of the magic powers that he got from drinking the Holy Grail in the previous movie that just kind of left over. Who knows?
Back when I was in the Marines,
This is from the Fallout TV series.
they taught us that if they ever drop a really big bomb, so it's to hold up your thumb just like this. And if the cloud is smaller than your thumb, now you run for the hills.
That is a very good way to get yourself blinded, because trying to put your thumb out there in front of a cloud when the flash, you're looking directly into the flash and you're putting your thumb, don't do that. Get to a shelter. That's your best option when it comes to trying to survive a nuclear explosion, is just get to your fallout shelter. And if you don't have one of those, go inside to the central part of your house, away from windows, anything that can be a projectile, and stay inside for 72 hours, long enough for a lot of the short-lived fission products to decay away. That's going to be your best chance.
It's bigger than your thumb?
They told us not to bother running.
And again, that's your option, is to run and get in your shelter, or don't bother. So why even do this test? Oh, here we got more of these shenanigans. I like this AI-generated nuclear waste. Sometimes they have the regular trefoil, which is correct. Sometimes they have 4, but sometimes they only have 2. Maybe the AI just think it looks more aesthetically pleasing. Well, it doesn't. Because first off, you're not going to see these types of canisters for high-level nuclear waste. They're not going to be packed like sardines in a can. They're massive. They look like this. They weigh upwards of 150 tons. These guys standing in front of them are perfectly safe because they're heavily shielded by reinforced concrete. They can withstand severe weather and direct missile strikes. So, good luck even fitting one of these in a plane that can lift that much. The storm comes in, cut to a storm, and then cut to the storm not even being that severe anymore, and then they're just randomly falling out. Note that they're falling out of the sides. The storm magically opened this door, and they're just falling off like rain. That's ridiculous. I also like that the barrels look different. Now they're a bit longer. And the green is... Nope, that's not what nuclear waste actually looks like. So the highest level nuclear waste is really just going to be used nuclear pellets and fuel assemblies, arranged kind of like this. A lost tribe. Note the symbol changed again, and it went from yellow to gray. Maybe that yellow bit shedded off somehow due to whatever magic is in place. And now it changed back, and now it's green paint. You don't want to eat green paint, girl. By the way, eating green paint would cause just as much internal damage as eating nuclear waste. I mean, that's both a way to get poisoned. Now it's 4. Okay, this is offensive against indigenous people now. I mean, they're gonna... Even if you couldn't detect radiation, you're gonna realize how bad it tastes. It's like eating metal and toxic. I mean, they know metal is not safe to eat. Ugh. Oh, of course, they're all turning green, too, because of this magic. So eating nuclear waste, eating high-level nuclear waste could be toxic for just the metal aspect of it, let alone the radiation dose. I mean, toxic is toxic, but this is just offensively bad. Oh, and now they're turning into zombies or something. Giant mutated... Okay, no. It's not going to give you superpowers. It's going to drain your power because it's going to get you sick and you're going to start off with nausea and vomiting, but it's going to get very horrific very quickly. Internal hemorrhaging, you lose all of your hair. I mean, I guess that part they got right. Your body loses its ability to heal effectively, so even minor injuries can become serious. It's a horrific way to go. You bleed from the inside out. No. So, no, it is not gonna do this sort of thing. And now they're the size of skyscrapers. Okay. Yeah, this is offensively bad. Okay, this snake already looks mutated from that. So no, what, we're gonna use snakes now? Come on. It would just kill the snake just like it would kill the people. And that looks like just looks like the Hulk. Man, this was another weird set of videos. Thanks again for recommending these to me. Please feel free to recommend more. There's a lot of nuclear misinformation out there. And thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.